Krishna and Daf Lamites Samadala, correct? Thank Hashem, we're able to learn every day. Supposed to be learning Hashem, the basic English immediately. Okay, so I'm sorry.
No, I just said amen.
Okay. The Mishnah starts. It's on Lamites. Someone that seduces a girl, he has to pay three things. We'll see what the three things are. Someone that rapes the girl, arba, pay four things. We'll see what that is. The one that seduces the girl, nice and vicious, has to pay for embarrassment. He has to pay for loss of value. And he also has to pay a fine. The one the rapist also has to pay for her pain. What is the difference? Funny question we just said. All right. I'm not sure why I had to do that. Okay. Okay, this is an interesting point. The Einus has to pay the fine immediately. The Mafata has to pay the fine. The Einus is the rapist. The seducer only has to pay the fine when he divorces her. If he decides to marry her, he doesn't have to pay the fine. That's his choice. Right. An otzitz is like a otzitz nakov. It's a flower pot. It's an earthenware pot. The rapist, he has to drink from his offensive type of vessel. You know, that's what he's stuck with. He has to stick with his wife. The rapist, he has to stick with her. If he wants, he could divorce her. He doesn't have to marry her. What are you talking about? That he has to stick with he has to drink from this vessel. Even if she's lame, if she's blind, even if she has boils, boils, leprosy, something. He has to keep her as a wife. Let's say she's promiscuous. What about then? She's not able to marry into the Jewish congregation. Maybe she's a mamzeres. Then he can't keep her as a wife. And to him, she will be as a wife. Isha Royale has to be fit for her to be the wife. Otherwise, that doesn't work. The Gemara asks straight away, Tsar Demai, what type of pain are you talking about? The girl's raped. It's a funny question the Gemara is asking. You know, let's take a look. Tosfos is a little surprised that the Gemara is even asking this question. The first relations, there would be the tearing of the skin, the virginity, that would definitely cause pain. But Tosfos says, well, that pain would have come from the husband anyway, so that's not like an extra pain. Okay, let's take a look. So Amar Avua de Shmuel, the Shmuel's father says, it's because she was pushed down to the ground when he raped her. So that pain he has to pay for. What are you telling me? That a rapist is exempt if he had a soft mattress, he had silk mattress, he doesn't have to pay them. So he doesn't have to pay for the pain. Maybe yeah, that was an extra pain. You know, this the situation that he raped her, he did not make it comfortable for her. This There's a problem over here, because Reb Shimon ben Yehuda said that there is no tsar. He argues with this. Reb Shimon ben Yehuda says the name of Reb Shimon, that's Reb Shimon ben Yehuda. He argues with this concept of paying for pain by the rapist, this extra fourth category of payment. He says she was going to have that pain anyway when she lives with her husband. That would be the first relations, right? Well, if that's what the pain that they're discussing, they have to be talking about the same pain. If that's what they're discussing, so he asks a sarcastic question. He says, is the husband going to throw her on the ground? That's basically what his point was over here. And she was going to have that pain by the husband. Doesn't spell it out. Rashi spells it out. So Amalai, and they responded to him, Ein a diamond of Elis Binus of Elis Baratzen. They responded to him that no, when someone has relations willingly, then there's less pain than when it's done by force. Okay. Whatever the case is, it's clearly not the pain. Then no one was discussing that she's getting pushed to the ground. So Elam Rav Nachman Amar Rav Baravu Tzar Shel Pisuk HaReglayim. It's the pain that she has to spread open her legs. That you spread open your legs to every passerby. That was in Yecheskel over there. Remember when it says Va'at Erim Ve'eria? We read it in the Haggadah, that chapter. I found you wallowing in the blood, and and I clothed you, and I dressed you in this, and then I Yaakov, and then I brought you to beautiful. Hey, grab a Gemara from so over there it says that Hashem is complaining about the Jewish people, that he did everything for us, and then we ended up just fine. Oh wow. So yeah, down over there there's Kesubos, yeah. So Hashem is complaining about that instead of being loyal to him, we ended up just having znus with every person that passes by. That means like we would look for idols, and that was the okay. We're on Lamed Tes Amud Beis. Rav Nachman Amar Rav Barafu, that the pain that he has to pay is the pain that she has when she has to open her legs to have relations. I don't know what the pain is, but okay. Let's take a look. The Gemara challenges this. It says, he said that there's only pain when by rape. There's no pain by when she's seduced. It says, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Baravu, Mashal de Mefut Lamad Avadaima. He gives a comparison here. A comparison, a parable, an example. What would the pain be like when a girl would be seduced for the first time? L'adam shem lachaver karli shirayin shali bi pater. One second. We're not explaining the pain yet. First, we're saying that why is the seducer exempt, but the rapist obligated? So he says like this: there is a pain. The question is, why does the seducer not have to pay for that pain? So he gives an example. He says, look, let's say someone tells his friend, tear my silk and you'll be exempt. So the seducer doesn't have to pay because he seduced her. What happens when he seduced her? She consents. He says, okay. So then that's why she's exempt. That's why he's exempt from paying the fine. Talking about the a girl that's raped, she's in between 12 and 12 and a half, and the fine is supposed to go to the father because he could have married her off anyway. But the Gemara now says, 1 second. So she consents, and then the father doesn't get the money. Shali, the avuaninu, that belongs to the father. The wise women say that a girl that's seduced, because she consents in the end, she doesn't have any pain. What are you talking about? We see that there is pain in the first relations. Abaya says, my stepmother, not stepmother. What was his name? It was a nursemaid. Abaya's parents passed away when he was young. His mother passed away. His father passed away while his mother was pregnant, and his mother passed away right after birth. So he was raised in the house of Rabbah, but there was a woman that was hired to nurse him. Yes, to nurse him, to raise him. So she was a wise woman, and Abaya quotes her all the time. So
Seducing means what exactly? Like they have a relationship and she figures out that it's not what he said it was?
yeah, we're calling it seduced
Uh-huh.
because she's 12. And
Oh,
and the
sorry.
father is supposed to be marrying her off. So we're calling it seduced. Really, today we just say, oh, it's a,
Oh, okay.
it's
So
a
this
friend.
also involves a minor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, in the best thing, we would ask them, are you dating anyone? That was a common question, obvious question. We'd ask people who come in to convert, are you dating anyone? So they would always tell us, not really. So we would say, well, who's the person that you're not really dating? But anyway, they would say that the word date to us and to them was totally different. We were not talking the same language. They would say no. So what are you talking about? You were, oh, that was just coffee. You know, it was it's a different world.
Yeah.
Okay, it's language. So Amali aim kama chamime kamaya chamime al risha de karcha. It's the pain that a bald person has when you pour hot water on his head. Okay, that's the example. Rav Amar Amali Bas Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda, the daughter of Rav Chizda, told this to me. Now, why is Rav saying the daughter of Chizda? Because that's his wife. Rav married the daughter of Rav Chizda. Ki Rivda de Kusilta. That Rivda de Kusilta is the scab that's on the bloodletting. The pain of the knife of the bloodletting. How do they translate over there?
The stab of the
Stab.
knife.
I looked up this morning. I looked in the dictionary. What's it called? The Jastra. The Rivda he translated as a scab, but I guess that's the point. Yeah, Rashi says it's nikur, which probably means the cutting. Nikur is the cut, right? And kusilta is the knife of the bloodletter. Rav Papa Marmli Bas Abasura. I didn't know Rav Papa's who Rav Papa married. Apparently, he married the daughter of Abasura. That says Kinama Kusha the Chinfi. It's like hard bread on the gums. Can the son marry the same? One second. Did that come in here? Or is that from? Oh, so 1 second. So where did this come in? Does Rav Papa married someone? Is this Rav Papa or is this Rava? Oh. Oh. Of Abasura. Oh, isn't that interesting? So there were two daughters of Abasura. One was married to Rav Papa and one was married to one of Rav Papa's sons. Wife. He's talking about his wife. Right. I don't know the son that married the daughter of Abasura. That's from another Gemara. I'm not familiar. Okay. Okay. Yeah, and that's a discussion. Well, the commentators discuss, does the girl that's seduced not have pain, or does the pleasure take away the pain, override the pain, or maybe there's no pain because it was done, it wasn't forced. Yeah. Now, what does the consent do? Oh, the consent doesn't help because the money's supposed to go to the father. So she consents and the father loses the money? No, it doesn't work like that. So we have to be discussing that the pain somehow is going down, and that's why the one that's seduced doesn't have the pain. Only the rapist has to pay for the pain. Okay, next piece of the Gemara. It says, talking about the Mishnah contrasted the rapist to the seducer. The rapist has to pay 4 things, and the seducer only pays 3 things. And one of the things that he has to pay is 50 silver coins, 50 shkalim, that have to be paid immediately if it was a rapist, and if it was a seducer, then he only has to pay if he decides not to marry her. He has the option of marrying her, and then he doesn't have to pay.
If the father doesn't agree, then it's seduction.
Oh, that we're going to see. Well, the father. Now we're going to see now if the father doesn't agree to the marriage. Meanwhile, the father didn't sell his daughter into the marriage, so that's why we're saying it was seduced. Okay, so it goes like this. The seducer pays when he divorces her. It says, look, he divorces her. Is he already married to her? He didn't even marry her yet. You're telling me when he pays when he divorces her? What it means is when he doesn't want to marry her, that's when he has to pay it, when he decides not to marry her. Tanya Namihachi was also taught in the Bryce of Pishamru, even though it was said Hamafata, Noisin, that the seducer has to pay. That's when he doesn't want to marry her. However, the two other things that he has to pay is her embarrassment and also her decrease in value that he gives immediately. That he doesn't wait to see, that we don't wait to see if he's going to marry her or not. And whether it was a rapist or a seducer, she and her father can say, we don't want this marriage. That's in our minds, that's what we would say immediately. I mean, the guy's a rapist, who wants to marry him. But apparently back then it wasn't so obvious. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. Could be, it would be hard for her to find the shidduch later, so we say at least stay with him. They didn't have the same sensitivity to shalom bias and all of these things that we have in our culture. Over there was just like survival. Who's going to support her? Who's going to make sure that she, gets medicine and, all of that protection. Okay. Bishleim and Mafuta, we understand what's going on by Mafuta, that she can say, I don't want to marry her. I don't want to marry him, right? Say, he seduced me, but I don't want to stay with him. Ksiv, it says in the pasuk, Ima'in Yima'in Aviha, if the father refuses, if a refusal he refuses, right? Then she pays the money. Then he pays, the rapist pays the money. Ainly Alavia. I only know that the father can refuse. He asked me, how do you know that she has the right to refuse this guy, that she doesn't want to marry him? Talmud Laimar, Yima'in Mikal Makim. Yeah, they switch it over here. It's not supposed to say Yima'in, which he refuses. It's probably supposed to be Ma'in, refusal. Any refusal. I don't know if that's accurate, but I have a note on the side. Ella Inus, but when it comes to rape, Bishleim Ihi, I understand that she can refuse. Ksiv Veloisia, to him she shall be Midaita, that it has to be willingly. If she doesn't want to marry him, then she could say she could reject him. Ella Via Minolan, how do we know the father can say that, okay, don't marry, I don't want you to marry my daughter, as there's a mitzvah for the rapist and for the seducer to stay married to her. But now we're saying that they can reject that. The daughter, the girl, and the girl's father can reject it. Either or. On money. They would have to pay the money, right? Well, the rapist has to pay anyway, but the seducer would then have to pay. Amar Abaya, how do we know that the father can reject the chassan, the son-in-law? Amar Abaya, look at what's going to happen. If the father did not want that marriage originally, so what does the guy do?
The father can annul his daughter's vows, so obviously take a couple of them and can annul them.
I don't know if it's the same thing. She took a vow with sort of like with in mind that the father would consent, and the father doesn't consent, so the vow's off. Not exactly how it works, but that's theoretically how it works. Here what we're saying is that 1 second. The father doesn't consent to this marriage. So what does the guy do? He goes and he rapes the girl, and then we say we don't care about the father's consent. So the sinner is the one that wins. That's how you win. That's how you win in these cases. He rapes, and then the father can't object anymore. So it's impossible. The bias says that should be the case. Rather, the father can object still. Okay, we don't want to give in to this guy. Rava says kal v'chaimer. He gives a kal v'chaimer. It's interesting kal v'chaimer. It says ma mefatesh le'yavar ela al dasavia b'vad. The seducer only violated the will of the father, but the girl had consent. Whether the father is able to protest by the seducer, is able to say, we don't want this marriage, reject the husband. So the rapist that violated the will of the girl and the father, like Kolshkin, is it not all the more so that they should be able to reject both the girl and the father? Okay. Rava le'amar ka'abaya. Why doesn't Rava say like Abaya? Abaya had a good logic. So we're going to let people rape, and then the marriage is automatic, and then you can't reject it. Want a cup of coffee? It's downstairs. Yeah.
No,
Is there milk?
usually.
Yeah.
Might be frozen.
You want him to bring you one? Okay. Rava doesn't say like Abai Kivan Dika Mishalim Knas Lav Niskaru. That's a good svara. It says like this. He's going to be able to marry her, right? He's going to be able to marry her. The father can't reject, let's say. And 1 second. So that's Niska. He's
The sinner.
a sinner. The sinner's profiting. But he's not profiting. He has to pay the fine. By Inus. To pay the fine. It's not profit. He's losing money. He's gaining a wife, but he's losing money. That's not profit.
Well, that's just like any other religion.
Marriage. Okay.
Still a problem.
Right. Okay. So he's not looking at that detail. What Rava's doing is Rava's taking the full picture and saying that there still is a loss here. Yeah. Abaya was saying, but in this one fine detail, there is profit. So you can't let him marry her if the father's rejecting. Abaya le'amak Rava. Why doesn't Abaya say like Rava? Mefata diyu matzi ma'akiv. By mefata, we are the father can reject. And mine of right? If the father can reject Ihu matzi ma'akiv. I'm sorry. Ihu, where Ihu means the person, the seducer can reject. Aviyanami matzakid, then the father can also reject the marriage. Ines, but when it comes to rape, the iulay matzimakiv, the rapist cannot reject. So then aviyanami matzimakiv, then the father can't reject, doesn't have the rights. No, it's just from the Kal V'chaimer, it wouldn't work. That's why Abaya says it has to be because we don't want the sinner to profit. Pan we have another source, another Bryce up Pishamra Ines Neis Miyad. Even though we said that the rapist has to pay the fine immediately, when he divorces her, ain't la love klum. He doesn't have to pay anything. Umar says when he divorces her, is he allowed to divorce her? It says he has to stay married to her whole life. Ain't la love klum. Rather, when she rejects him, he doesn't have to pay anything. She already got the money for the ksuba.
Is that Migu?
No, no. It's just saying that since she got the money from the ksuba, miyun would be when the brothers marry her off. This is a different halacha. This is a real marriage. Miyun was like a rabbinic marriage that she can walk out on.
But this is not the case.
No, this is not a miyun. This is where she asks for a divorce. Right.
regular day for somebody in her life, you know, quality one.
Right. The only thing is that she's 12. That's the whole thing. Yeah. And the money in this instance is supposed to go to the father. So that it's like one little detail there.
After 12 or 12 and a half.
After
the
12
father
and a
has
half,
no say.
it's the father, right? It's up to her. So it's a very interesting thing that's going on here is that her ksuba was given to her by the time of the rape. Then there's a halacha that they have to stay married. And basically, according to this, she goes out without a ksuba. If she asks for a divorce, there's no ksuba there. She already got the money. That fine was the ksuba, right? Mace, if he dies, yotza kesef knasa b'ksubasa. The value of her knas was her ksuba. 200 zuz, which is 50 shkalim. 50 shkalim is the same as 200 zuz. That's the 4 zuz per shekel. It's really a selah or something. That's a shekel, and that's right. Remember the system? 4 zuz per dinar. Oh, then okay, so the selah was 4 dinar, I think, but no, a zuz is a dinar. A zuz and a dinar is the same. It's 4 dinar per selah. When we say shekel in the Torah, we refer to the selah that we're talking about. Half a selah, half a shekel was was what we were talking about. We said the shekel in itself.
Get a lot of money.
I think it's the value 200. I think it's the value of like a year's salary or something, or a year. But it's a value of silver. In those days, it was a year's salary. I think now that value of silver would correspond to like 10,000, 20,000 or something. It's nothing compared to a divorce. What is it? Oh, it could be. It depends how the silver fluctuates. It's a certain amount of it's amount of weight. Yeah. So okay. However, Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda miyesh l'ksuba mana. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda says that she has a ksuba of 100. 100 means that she was married as a woman, that was already married previously, that was not a virgin, because it's interesting, he raped her. He had to pay the value of the ksuba for a virgin. Now he divorces her, he has to pay the value of a girl that wasn't a virgin. That's his new, according to Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda. That's her new price. Well, the Gemara now says, "B'may kamiflagi." What are they arguing about? The Rabbanan say that she doesn't have any ksuba at all. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda says she has a ksuba, but it's of a woman that was not a virgin. But, well, the Gemara explains very interesting. Rabbanan Sabri, the Rabbanan hold time in Maitkin Rabbanan ksuba. Why did the rabbis institute a ksuba? That when a woman gets divorced, the husband has to pay a certain amount of money. Why did they do that? They take halal of bein of leitzia. There was no coffee.
No.
Oh, okay. So that it should not be so easy to divorce her. We didn't want that he should just get angry because the dinner got burnt. He says you're out. They say okay, so let's go to the bank. And then they put a stop on that. So but in this case they don't need a ksuba. Why don't they need a ksuba? Because he can't divorce her anyway. So what's the point of it? What? If she doesn't want, or if the father doesn't want, then they're not together. Oh, he doesn't have to actually live with her as a wife, I don't think, if he doesn't want. But he has to support her, he has to maintain her. I guess. What would we do if she's saying he's not living with me as a husband? What would so she would ask for the divorce and then she could go. Yeah. So the knas was at the beginning. So now, right. Right. Rabbi Yehuda Savar Hanami Mitzar La Ada Amrahi Loi Beina La. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, 1 second. If we want them to stay together, he's going to make her so annoyed until she asks for the divorce. He'll just torment her until she asks for the divorce. If he doesn't want to stay married to her, that's the easy one. So what we did was we imposed a fine, not a fine, a ksuba on this marriage as well, so that he doesn't torment her and she asks for divorce. He's going to have to pay, and it's not going to be affordable for him. Okay. We said this comparison was that the rapist has to drink from his own flower pot, his own cup, the earthenware pottery, and utzitz is this flower pot. So, Amalei Rava mi Parzika Ravashi Michti Migmar Gemiri Me'adadi. 1 second. He says the fact that there's 50 coin payment for the rapist and there's 50 coin payment for the seducer, right? 50 shkalim. How did we know that? Because we compared one to the other. This one said coin, shkalim. This one said 50. We learned together that it's 50 shkalim by both of them. Once we're comparing them together, we're on top of Daf Mem. So let's compare them together, that the seducer should also have to stay married to her, and he doesn't have a choice of either paying the fine or marrying her. Why do we give him the choice? If we're learning one from the other, so let's learn this one detail also one from the other, and we'll say it's the same thing as the rapist. The dowry, right? Was it the Maya? Gives her a dowry as a wife, but it says to him, that means midaita, that means only if it's willingly. That means the seducer does not have to marry her. If he marries her, he doesn't have to pay that fine. What does it mean? That he has to drink from his cup. So the Mishnah went on to say that even if she was lame or she had these terrible illnesses, he still has to stay married to her. Amar Rav Kana. Kana says, it said over this halacha in front of Rav Zvid Minarda, and I guess it means he asked this following question. One of the details there was that if this was a woman that he was not allowed to marry, for example, she was a mamzeres, so then he doesn't have to marry. Even though he raped her, he doesn't have to marry her. So his question is, 1 second, there's a positive command that he's supposed to marry her. There's a negative command that he shouldn't marry her. The positive always overrides the negative. He should have to marry her. Let the positive command override the negative command. Right? Amarli, so Rav Zvid Minardai responded, when do we say that the positive overrides the negative? There's a rule that the person is not allowed to cut off tzaras, not allowed to cut off the spot of leprosy. But let's say someone has tzaras exactly on the spot of the circumcision, and he has to do the circumcision. Is he allowed to cut it off, cut off the foreskin? So the rule is that yes, he has a positive command to do the bris, the negative command not to cut off the tzaras. So we say the positive command overrule. Yeah, but it's not just because it's a higher level. It says bris is a high level, but even without that high level, just the fact that it's a positive command, it also would remember like shatnez on the tzitzis, that there's a linen garment. He puts the four corners, he puts the tzitzis on it. So it's because the positive pushes off the negative of the shan. Aval hacha, but over here, there's a way out. Let's say she would say, I don't want him as a husband. So then, is there a mitzvah for him to marry her? There's no mitzvah. So we have a way out. What's the way out? We train her to say, I don't want him as a husband. And then the mitzvah falls off. The whole mitzvah was only if she wants to stay married to him. But there's a way out of this mitzvah. So then it's not considered a masay that's going to push off the relationship.
Generally, is there any disincentive for a woman to stay married? What if she just wants to go with someone else, another guy?
She can.
And she doesn't pay anything.
Right.
Actually, the other way around. The
Right.
husband has to pay her.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're asking that why is there not a fine? Yeah. Okay. What's the answer to that? Question is that why is there a woman not have any penalty for getting divorced? She just gets a ksuba and she goes to the next husband.
He's a multimillionaire. The next husband will say, "It's good. You got rid of that guy. I really wanted you. You wanted me."
Right.
That's a problem. Yeah, because she's very desirable as a trophy woman. You know, that with actresses, right? They have 5 husbands by the time they retire.
Right.
Well, George.
12.
It's fine. So what's the answer? The real answer to your question?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess theoretically that's possible. I don't think it's the nature of a woman to do that, but I guess theoretically it's possible. I think she wants more stability.
Right. I know a husband wants a woman who's been married 5 times to get the super fee. It's not going to fall into that time.
Okay. Yisaima, new Mishnah. Yisaima, an orphan girl. This may be 2 separate cases. The next case would be Shenisarsa v'Sheniskarsha. It may be the same case, maybe 2 separate cases. That or a woman, let's say, that was betrothed and then divorced, which basically means both of them are not under the care, under the jurisdiction of the father. Well, Rabbi Elazar Reimer, it's emphasis on the Elazar, it's not Eliezer, it's Elazar Reimer. Rabbi Elazar says, who's Rabbi Elazar of the Mishnah? Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua. He's one of Rabbi Kiva's students. He's not so common.
No.
No, usually in the Mishnah, it's Rabbi Eliezer. In the Gemara, Rabbi Elazar is very common. That's Rabbi Elazar ben Padas. That's the friend of Rabbi Yechon, the student in front. Rabbi Elazar Reimer, Ines Chayev, Amafata Pater. If the girl was raped, then he has to pay the fine. But if he seduced her, so then he's exempt. Why? Because there was no father here to pay to. It was all the money was going to go to her. She can't consent and then claim money that 1 second, but my father didn't consent. There's no father here. So because of her consent, there's no penalty.
I just thought about it. I think I just answered my question.
What was that?
She loses monetary value because she's no longer a suer.
Yeah, that would be the first one. Then the second, third, fourth, and fifth, there's the same value. So yeah. Okay. So Amar Rabba Bar Bar Chana, Amar Rabba Bar Bar Chana, Rabbi Yechanan, Rabba Bar Bar Chana says, name of Rabbi Yechanan, Rabbi Lazar, B'shitas Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yamra. See this? Rabbi Lazar is saying, according to the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, his teacher. The Amar Rabbi Akiva said, we had this 2 days ago, Yeshla Knas, and Knas al-Atzma. That a girl that was betrothed and then divorced, and she's still a virgin, she does have the fine, she does get the fine if she's seduced, and she keeps it. She keeps the money. No, not seduced. If she's raped, not seduced. Seduced would be impossible. She's raped. Mimai, how do you know that he's actually following Rabbi Akiva's shita? Midiktani Yisaima, because it says an orphan. Rabbi Lezer Einas Chayav Amafata Pata. It says Einas, the ma'anas, that means the rapist has to pay, and the seducer is exempt. Yisaima Pshita, that's obvious. If she is an orphan, there's no one to pay it to, right? That she's exempt, and maybe the chiddush is the Einas is Chayav. Where it says Allah Kamash Milan, rather it's coming to teach us the Narish and Niskarsha ki Yasaima, that she is like, it's almost like a comparison in the Mishnah. There's a Yasaima, which is the same as a woman that was a Yasaima as an orphan, the same as a woman that was betrothed and divorced. What's the comparison? Well, my Yasaima Latzma, just like the orphan keeps the money, Af Narish and Niskarsha keeps the money. Okay. And that's how Rabbi Lazar is following Rabbi Akiva that says that the fine money goes to her. Amar Rab Zera, Amar Rabba Barshila, Amar Rab Amnuna Saba, Amar Rab Ada Barav, Amar Rav, Halachik Rabbi Lazar. Ultimately, the name of Rav, the halach is like Rabbi Lazar. Kari Rav Alad Rabbi Lazar, Tuvina de Chakime. Rav said about Rabbi Lazar, Tuvina is Ashrei. and praised or happy. How do you translate Asher?
Happy is the best.
Happy is the one, right? Asher Yeshua. Happy is the one.
Fortunate.
Fortunate. Thank you. I'm sorry. Yeah. So that he is the fortunate of the wise men. Yeah, I'm not sure how that came in here specifically because I guess they're saying the halachas like that. Okay. Okay. We have a new Mishnah. Yeah. Ezel Baishas. How do we estimate the embarrassment that we have to pay to the woman? How does that come in? How do we estimate that? It goes according to the woman and it goes according to the man that embarrassed them. Well, apparently an average type person, his embarrassment is worse. When the average person embarrasses someone else, that's worse than if a very important person would embarrass him. That's sort of like, oh, you already did to me, it's like sort of like not as much of an embarrassment. And also when a very low person embarrasses him, her, then it's also not really an embarrassment. Whatever, what do they know? No one takes them serious anyway. So it's the average. Rashi spells this out that the average person would cause more embarrassment than an important person, and then from a lesser important person. Pagam, how do you estimate the decrease of value that she has because she was raped? Well, Ryan Isakilu Shifchanim Keres B'Shuk. We estimate how much she would be worth if she would be sold on the slave market. How much she would be worth as a virgin, and how much is she worth now as when she's not a virgin? I was going to ask, what does that have to do with the slave market? They just want them to do work. Knas, that's Shavah B'Kol Adam. That's equal. Everyone 50 coins. Anything that's a set amount in the Torah, that's always going to be the same for everyone. The Gemara says that how do you know that you have all these different payments? Maybe when the Torah says that there's 50 coins, maybe that covers all the payments. It's all included. Maybe what the Torah means when it says pay the 50 coins, it's included in that the decrease of value. It's included in that the embarrassment. What are you going to say? Lived with a princess. He has to pay 50 coins. Lives with a commoner. He's going to have to pay 50 coins. It's going to be the same thing. Abaya says, 1 second. When an ox scores a slave, there's a fine, a penalty that the owner of the ox has to pay. 30 coins to the owner of the slave. So it goes like this. If that's the case, then you're going to tell me like this. Amro, they said, if you have a slave that is able to pierce pearls, to string pearls, it's a very highly skilled job. And the ox scores him and he dies. You have to pay 50 coins. A slave that's a tailor that was not highly skilled, apparently then everyone can do this, is also going to be 30 coins. The truth is, it is. But if you're going to use that svara to tell me that if he rapes a girl that's a princess versus a guy, that it has to be different, then by the slave it should also be different. And it's not. Rather, it goes like this. Let's say 2 people lived with this girl. Now, this becomes complex, because how do you have 2 people living with the girl and both of them should have a fine? Because when she's not a virgin, then there's no fine. So the Gemara explains it. Echad kedarka, echad shalei kedarka. The first one, she's still a virgin. One lived with her in an abnormal manner, like sodomy, and the other one lived with her in a normal manner. So she was still a virgin for the second relations. So Yaimru, people will say, Bal Shlema Chamishim, Bal Puguma Chamishim, both of them really have to pay. But one of them was already like considered blemished because she had relations once. So you say it's 50 coins for both of them. So if that's the case, then by a slave, you'll say the same thing. Yaimru Eved Bari Shleishim, if the slave was healthy, it's 30 coins. Eved Mukashchina Shleishim, if the slave had leprosy, it's also going to be 30 coins. And the truth is, it is. Alamar Abaya needs a pasuk to say that why it's going to be the same. And it's not going to include those other things. It says, Tachas Asher Ina, in place of the affliction that he caused her, Hani Tachas Ina. This is in place of the affliction, that means actual relations. Obviously, there's other payments, which are the embarrassment and the decrease of value. Rava says we have another pasuk. It says that the man that lay with her has to give the father of the girl 50 coins. The pleasure of laying with her is 50 coins. But there's other damages, that's the embarrassment and the decrease of value. Maybe it doesn't go to the father, maybe it goes to her. The Baishas Begam we're asking, maybe the embarrassment goes to her. The 50 coins go to the father. Baishas Begam goes to her, let's say, we quote a pasuk that we had when it came to when someone took a vow. The girl took a vow and she's still under her father's, what Jonathan mentioned, took a vow still under her father's jurisdiction, that the father can annul the vow. So you see, anything that she gets as a young girl belongs to the father. So even the Baishas Begam goes to the father. The Gemara is going to challenge that. How do you know that Rav Huna says the name of Rav? How do you know that the work of a girl goes to the father? In other words, the income that she gets belongs to the father. Shnemar, as it says in the pasuk, the man sells his daughter as a maidservant, and he can keep the money, right? That he sells her, right? He sells her as a maidservant, he gets the money. Just like the maidservant, all the income goes to her master. Afbas, also the daughter, all the income would go to the father. The maidservant goes to the master, income goes to the father. Gemara says, Lamali, why do I need that limud of Rav Huna Marav that compares to the master? Let's learn from Nidarim that if she takes a vow, the father can annul it. So too, everything belongs to the father. The Gemara rejects it, says that's not talking about the income, that's talking about just the vow. Well, let's learn from the vow. It says, you can't learn a monetary payment from the way vows work, that the father can annul the daughter's vow. Well, let's learn from the knas. There's 50 coins that go to the father. Let's say also the Baishas Begam also goes to the father. It says, no, that's a knas. This is actual payment. This is actual value. It's interesting that Baishas here is being called Memaina. Other places, Baishas is called a knas. But okay, Elamistabra, rather, we have to say that it's logical, the Avia Havi, that it belongs to the father. Why? Because the father has the option of giving her over to anyone that he wants her to be married to. He could have married her to someone with leprosy. So he could have caused her embarrassment, and he doesn't. And therefore, he always owns her embarrassment and her value. Let's finish till the Mishnah. It says, we estimate her value based on if she would be a slave that's being sold. How do you evaluate that? She was raped. Now her value as a slave goes down. Well, how much would a person rather pay to have a virgin slave girl than to have a girl that's not a virgin be a slave? The Gemara says, what does he care if she's just mopping floors? What does it have to do with if she's a virgin or not? He wants to marry her off to his slave, right? And he wants to get a virgin for his slave. It says, what does he care if his slave ends up with the virgin? What does that interest him? It says, no, talking about a slave that is very good, slave. The master wants to give him a bonus. So for that, he wants to get a virgin girl for him to marry. So that's why he would pay a little extra for this, and that would be the difference in value. Okay, let's leave this.
Wow.
Have a good day, everyone.
That was a tour.